How does a discarded noble son turn a death sentence into his first territory? Alan Gale is about to discover that monsters are worth far more than mercy. He is the second son of the impoverished Gale barony, barely above common birth. In this kingdom, second sons inherit labor contempt and eventually an empty road. Alan has spent 3 years feeding horses, chopping wood, and shoveling stable dung. Servants receive wages for such work, while he receives insults and leftover food. His father and stepmother plan to expel him when he turns 17 next month. Until then, they squeeze every useful hour from his frail and underfed body. Yet Alan carries a secret nobody in this world could possibly understand. 3 years earlier, he arrived here with memories from an entirely different life. He once tried improving the estate by introducing compost made from animal manure. Nobody listened until his private experiment produced healthier crops than their old methods. His father immediately declared the technique a closely guarded Gale family secret. Alan received 1 chicken leg followed by permanent responsibility for making fertilizer. That humiliation taught him how this family rewards intelligence without power or status. Today, however, Alan sits at the docks of St. Bridget City for a selection. Every 3 years, 10 noble second sons receive charters to claim frontier territory. Wealthy families treat the event as a path toward titles, land, and independence. Alan expects nothing because minor nobles rarely receive even the chance to compete. Then Frank the city magistrate approaches with guards and suspiciously cheerful manners. Frank announces that the great families have generously offered 1 minor noble a place. Their generosity disappears the moment Alan learns which challenge awaits that unfortunate candidate. The random draw has selected an island covered by poisonous black death mist. 10 skeleton soldiers wander inside, hidden from ordinary sight by the unnatural darkness. The mist slowly corrodes living bodies, making every breath another step toward death. Every wealthy candidate refuses because none came here to sacrifice himself for procedure. Unfortunately, the rules require someone to challenge every island before selection can continue. The powerful families therefore need a disposable substitute, and Alan perfectly fits their purpose. Frank's guards have already collected bribes from other minor nobles seeking exemption. Alan alone cannot pay because his pockets are emptier than his approaching future. He attempts to refuse, but Frank threatens to raise the Gale family's taxes. His father would blame him and throw him out without even traveling money. Cornered, Alan bargains over the price of accepting what appears to be execution. He begins with 1 gold coin and eventually secures 10 silver coins instead. The payment comes directly from the bribe money Frank's guards collected that morning. Alan also requests a longbow because his weak body cannot survive close combat. Frank accepts immediately, proving how certain everyone feels about Alan's coming death. When the magistrate announces his name, laughter spreads across the crowded noble stands. His oversized silk clothing offers no protection and looks several generations out of date. He has no armor, no trained companions, and barely enough strength to draw steel. A guard lowers the bridge, wishes him luck sarcastically, and shoves him forward. Alan steps toward the island while 10 silver coins suddenly feel insultingly worthless. He briefly imagines surviving through service charm or marriage into a wealthier household. Any humiliating future seems preferable to dissolving inside supernatural mist before an applauding crowd. Nevertheless, retreat would destroy his remaining options, so he forces his trembling legs onward. The moment he enters the darkness freezing, energy crawls beneath his skin. Then a clear chime sounds inside his mind, reporting 1/10 of an energy point. Alan freezes because the silent system accompanying him for 3 years has awakened. The Universal Enhancement System can examine targets and improve almost anything through stored energy. Until now, Alan has never discovered how those precious points are actually earned. He tried charitable acts, killing insects, and several increasingly desperate experiments around the stables. Nothing worked, leaving the mysterious gift as useless as every promise made to him. Inside the death mist, however, energy enters his body simply through prolonged exposure. When the total reaches 1 point, the system reveals enhancement choices for his bow. Alan can increase its strength, critical damage, or firing speed with 1 upgrade. He chooses firing speed, which also reduces the force required to draw the string. Suddenly, the longbow becomes manageable even for his historically fragile arms and shoulders. The mist limits ordinary vision to several meters, but Alan possesses another advantage. Bright health bars expose every skeleton's location through the darkness surrounding him. He raises the bow, follows the nearest marker, and releases his first arrow. The shaft punches through a skull and extinguishes the green flame burning inside. Bones collapse across the ground, followed by another system notification awarding 1 energy point. Alan finally understands the hidden rule that governed his system all along. Killing supernatural creatures produces energy, and this island contains 10 waiting opportunities. He moves through the mist, firing before each skeleton can properly locate him. One skull breaks, then another, while pale bones scatter across the contaminated soil. Outside, noble spectators assume Alan is fleeing blindly or already being torn apart. Several young nobles even begin wagering on how many minutes he can remain alive. Their amusement weakens when the sounds from the island become steadily quieter. The black mist thins, revealing movement where everyone expected only a fresh corpse. When the darkness finally clears, Alan stands alone with his bow still raised. 10 shattered skeletons lie around him, their soul flames completely extinguished. The common crowd erupts because a minor noble has succeeded for the first time in years. Frank stares speechlessly at the victim he selected specifically to end the troublesome round. Instead of disappearing, Alan has seized the final Pioneer Charter through undeniable victory. He swears loyalty to King Dorian VI and formally accepts his new authority. Then he opens the charter and immediately understands why fate has not finished mocking him. Every other winner receives fertile plains protected by Rhodes soldiers and established settlements. Alan receives the Desert of Death, a wasteland filled with monsters and hostile tribes. The rich candidates stop envying him and begin laughing harder than they did before. One noble son named Jimmy eagerly spreads news of Alan's supposedly worthless territory. Pity replaces jealousy as the crowd imagines him dying somewhere beyond the southern border. Frank approaches again now, wearing the expression of a supportive and honorable official. He introduces himself properly and reminds Alan that several rewards remain unclaimed. Those rewards include a workhorse leather vest, longsword, and round iron shield. For Alan, who has never truly owned anything, the equipment represents a small fortune. Even the Gale Barony cannot provide comparable gear to most of its soldiers. Frank adds the longbow as a personal gift and offers a useful introduction letter. Moments earlier, he treated Alan as disposable. Now he praises the young lord's potential. Alan recognizes the transformation as a politician's most refined survival technique. He accepts everything because resentment is less valuable than equipment, transportation, and connections. After securing the gear, Alan rides away alone instead of waiting for his relatives. The Gale estate lies more than 50 miles inland from St. Bridget's City. During the journey, he examines the 10 energy points earned from 10 skeletons. His father never allowed monster hunting and supernatural creatures avoid the Central Heartlands. That explains why 3 years of labor never produced a single usable point. Near Springfield, Alan camps beside the road and studies his personal attributes. The system could enhance nearby stones, but improving random objects would waste everything. He invests all 10 points into Constitution, targeting the weakness controlling his entire life. Alan was born prematurely and could never cultivate the Gale family's flame battle aura. Years of practice produced perfect movements, yet his body failed to channel their energy. The enhancement changes that limitation before his astonished eyes and trembling hands. His constitution rises from weak to normal while his strength nearly quadruples. Muscles tighten along his arms, his exhaustion vanishes, and the heavy sword feels manageable. When a faint red glow crosses his palm, Alan realizes his true ascent has begun. He laughs uncontrollably in the darkness, alarming residents who hear strange cackling beyond Springfield. By the time local guards investigate the following morning, Alan has already departed. The Gale Castle stands above Mirror River, protected by stone walls and a deep moat. It lacks gardens and elegant towers, reflecting the family's limited wealth and influence. Alan arrives alone at dawn, startling guards who expected him inside the family carriage. He hands over the horse orders proper feeding and enters without explaining his success. A maid directs him toward the parlor where his stepmother spends her comfortable morning. Lady Mary lounges in purple silk, beautiful enough to manipulate Alan's brutal father easily. Her personal maid Caroline waits nearby, displaying the familiar contempt reserved for Alan. Mary does not ask about the selection or whether he survived any danger. She merely orders him to return outside and clean dung from the stables. Alan suppresses his anger because open defiance alone would gain him nothing useful. Instead, he studies Mary boldly, making her shift beneath an attention he never dared show. He claims that a nobleman in St. Bridget City has hired him as an estate manager. Since he plans to leave immediately, Mary welcomes the news as convenient removal. Then Alan falsely reveals that his father promised him 10 gold coins before departure. The amount represents a painful portion of the Gale family's yearly savings. Mary explodes because losing that much wealth to her unwanted stepson is intolerable. Alan strengthens the lie by mentioning Cassie Farm, a property earned through military service. As the older second son, he possesses a legitimate claim against Mary's young son, Nick. He says the payment was intended to prevent any future dispute over that land. Mary remains suspicious until Alan reveals the faint flame aura across his palm. Both women freeze because everyone knows his weak body made cultivation impossible. Alan adds that a Viscount recruited him after witnessing his newly awakened potential. Should Mary refuse payment, he can simply wait until Sinclair returns from campaign. His father is helping Earl Irving suppress a peasant revolt in a neighboring barony. Sinclair also took Alan's older half-brother to gain practical experience during the fighting. With their return expected soon, Mary cannot safely verify Alan's story before acting. She begins bargaining at 3 gold coins while Alan refuses to abandon his advantage. Eventually, he changes the terms and requests money together with 2 lifetime servants. The first is Thomas, a dependable man being trained as the future household steward. The second is Caroline, Mary's educated personal maid with beauty and considerable ambition. Caroline panics because Mary once promised to arrange her marriage into a noble family. 10 years of loyal service were supposed to transform her from servant into noble wife. Alan quietly points out that keeping Caroline nearby may threaten Mary's own household. Sinclair already notices her beauty, and 13-year-old Nick has begun noticing it as well. Such distraction could interfere with Nick's aura training and developing self-control. Mary's resistance collapses the moment her son's future enters the calculation. She agrees to 4 gold coins, Thomas and Caroline, in exchange for Alan's guarantee. He must never return, seeking Sinclair's money, property protection, or assistance. Alan accepts because he expected to leave with almost nothing except worn clothing. Now he possesses capital, 2 educated helpers' equipment, and an independent legal title. Mary sends the contracts and payment upstairs, clearly eager to remove him immediately. Alan packs several linen shirts and the old silk outfit covering his stronger body. His only treasured possession is a silver bracelet left by his deceased birth mother. She died bringing him into this world, leaving memories he can never personally recover. A quiet knock interrupts him, followed by Mary's 13-year-old daughter entering the room. Lilia was born during Mary's first marriage to a Viscount family's eldest son. Her father died before inheriting, and his brothers seized everything intended for his household. Mary remarried Sinclair and brought the lonely girl into the Gale castle. Although treated better than Alan, Lilia remains neglected beside Mary's favored son, Nick. Nick bullies her while the heir spends most days preparing for future responsibilities. Alan alone comforted Lilia with stories whenever she cried for her dead father. In return, she secretly saved portions of meat for him during family meals. Now she stands silently twisting her clothing because she knows he is leaving. Alan seats her beside him and tears immediately soak into his shirt. He offers 2 small princess books, purchased during his overnight stop near Springfield. Usually such gifts would fill her with excitement, but today she pushes them away. She only wants Alan to remain in the one home they have shared. He cannot stay yet. He gives her a promise strong enough to ease the separation. Alan reveals that he has become a lord with a charter and territory. Once he builds a castle, Lilia may live there in the prettiest available room. She will receive stories every day instead of hiding her loneliness behind old walls. Lilia understands little about development politics or the dangers surrounding his assignment. She understands Castle's family and the fact that Alan has never deceived her. The promise comforts her, although Alan privately fears he may never fulfill it. His territory remains a deadly desert where organized enemies receive rewards for killing him. Lilia begins folding his clothes carefully, revealing maturity far beyond her small appearance. Before departing, Alan gives 2 gold coins to John, the castle's elderly steward. John must use the money to enroll Lilia at the Noble Academy for 1 year. Mary never considered paying such tuition, even though education could transform Lilia's future. Alan trusts John because 3 generations of service never corrupted the childless old man. Should the desert claim Alan's life, Lilia will at least possess valuable education. Late in spring, he rides away while Thomas and Caroline follow on foot. Even after the castle shrinks behind him, Alan imagines Lilia watching from her window. Thomas repeatedly looks backward after 9 years of service within those familiar walls. He once helped Alan complete difficult chores when the young noble's body failed him. Caroline shows no such loyalty, and her swollen eyes reveal resentment toward the transfer. Alan still values her literacy, arithmetic, organization, and experience managing a noble household. Half a day later, Nick races home after learning Alan won the charter. Mary discovers the deception and nearly loses control over the vanished gold and servants. Nick suffers particularly from Caroline's departure, confirming Alan's warning was not invented entirely. 2 weeks later, Alan's small group reaches Sandgate City near the southern frontier. This crowded trade center is the final protected stop before the Desert of Death. Alan presents Frank's introduction letter to Locke the magistrate and Frank's former classmate. Locke examines the young pioneer and explains why the territory became nearly impossible recently. The Desert of Death stretches across an enormous region bordered by 3 rival kingdoms. Refugees and outcasts survive around scattered oases where strength replaces law and inherited authority. Some groups control cities, while smaller communities cling to wells barely supporting several households. Until 2 years ago, each kingdom maintained proxy forces to protect its interests there. Then the Falcon Kingdom's entire network vanished overnight, leaving no friendly power behind. The neighboring kingdoms now reward information about anyone aligned with Alan's homeland. Destroying such a group can earn 10 gold coins depending on the evidence provided. Pioneer lords are specifically included, placing the same price directly upon Alan's head. 1 gold coin could transform a peasant family, making 10 enough to invite endless betrayal. Alan abandons his original plan to recruit settlers publicly within Sandgate City. Announcing his charter would turn every desperate traveler into a potential bounty hunter. He takes Thomas and Caroline to a clean roadside stall while reconsidering his approach. After weeks of hard bread and dried meat, he orders roasted and stewed rabbit. Caroline complains that a noble eating beside common travelers is humiliating and improper. Alan ignores her and notices 5 men at another table studying her appearance. 4 wear linen while their supposed noble leader wears faded and poorly maintained silk. Their behavior exposes small inconsistencies that Caroline, focused on discomfort, never notices. The false noble shares a table with his servants, an illegal breach of social custom. Worse, he watches Caroline like merchandise rather than admiring her as a beautiful woman. Locke mentioned that slave trading flourishes throughout the lawless southern wasteland. Alan combines those details and constructs a dangerous opening move for his hidden territory. He publicly rebukes Caroline for repeated disrespect and returns her lifetime service contract. Stunned freedom replaces her resentment, and she confirms that the document is genuine. Caroline thanks him, gathers her skirt, and rushes toward the city gate without hesitation. Thomas watches in concern, understanding dangers that a castle-raised maid has never personally faced. The 5 suspicious men abandon unfinished food and casually follow Caroline through the crowd. Alan remains seated until Thomas finishes eating, refusing to reveal his intentions yet. Near the gate, Caroline finally realizes she lacks transportation protection and sufficient money. The apparent noble approaches politely and introduces himself as a merchant traveling north. He offers her affordable passage, and desperation prevents her from examining the opportunity carefully. Once the cart leaves the main road, Caroline recognizes that they are heading south. 5 men surround her, bind her limbs, gag her, and hide her beneath empty sacks. Their cargo contains only straw and leaves because the entire journey was bait. They expect Caroline's refinement and beauty to earn dozens of silver coins at auction. Meanwhile, Alan leads Thomas along the same southern road at a measured distance. His system map displays every living creature within a radius of 10 kilometers. Green indicates friendliness, yellow neutrality, and red unmistakable hostility toward Alan himself. Mixed colors reveal complicated feelings, allowing him to judge intentions without hearing a word. 5 deep red markers travel ahead beside 1 yellow marker lightly stained with resentment. Alan knows the 5 kidnappers took Caroline exactly as his plan required. She served as bait, but he never intended to abandon her to their cruelty. More importantly, those criminals may lead him toward people and territory inside the desert. For 5 days, Alan follows their cart through burning sand while conserving his horse. Water dwindles, Thomas grows increasingly frightened, and the hostile markers continue southward. At last, the map reveals a basin containing 52 people and crumbling desert buildings. Lancer's group enters the settlement, whose residents display neutrality rather than criminal hostility. Alan realizes 5 thugs are bullying an isolated community with no walls or guards. By killing the kidnappers, he can rescue Caroline and claim his first hidden foothold. As darkness settles over the basin, Alan prepares to conquer his future without revealing his crown. Lancer celebrates beside the campfire while his 4 companions drink rum and mock their captive. Inside a nearby shack, Caroline hears them discussing what they will do before selling her. Red Wolf City offers a thriving slave market where her appearance could command 1 gold coin. Bound hand and foot, she finally understands how completely her arrogance endangered her life. She regrets abandoning Alan, insulting him, and trusting the first stranger who offered transportation. For one desperate moment, Caroline imagines that her former master might somehow rescue her. Then she dismisses the thought because Alan should not even know where she went. Outside, however, Alan is already creeping within 50 meters of the kidnapper's fire. He wears the leather vest, carries his sword, and checks every arrow before advancing. Thomas begs to accompany him, but Alan orders the frightened servant to remain hidden. Most villagers have retreated indoors, leaving only Lancer's men laughing beside the flames. Alan draws his bow and centers the first arrow upon the loudest man's head. The shaft strikes while the kidnapper is laughing, dropping him into the dirt mid-breath. Before the others understand, a second arrow tears through another man's exposed throat. The remaining 2 scramble across the ground, suddenly revealing that they are criminals, not warriors. One takes an arrow through the calf, but desperately continues limping toward the darkness. Alan breathes, adjusts his aim, and drives the next shaft into the fugitive's back. The final man nearly escapes the clearing before another arrow sends him face first into sand. Their screams drag Lancer from Caroline's shack, furious and only half finished washing. His anger collapses when he sees 4 bodies scattered beneath the moonlight. Lancer retreats behind the wooden door and desperately offers the entire settlement to his attacker. Alan fires through the door, forcing him backward before calmly drawing the longsword. He slams his shoulder against the entrance while Lancer barricades it with nearby furniture. The trapped criminal claims neighboring settlements will arrive and overwhelm any invading stranger. Alan abruptly stops, allowing 20 seconds of silence to convince Lancer that he withdrew. When Lancer presses his head against the wood, Alan punches directly through the door. His strengthened fist shatters the man's cheekbone and drops him senseless onto the floor. The impossible blow convinces Lancer that a trained knight has come to punish him. He offers money, territory, and even the imprisoned woman in exchange for survival. Alan already considers the settlement his, and Caroline was his servant before the kidnapping. Recognition appears in Lancer's terrified eyes, a heartbeat before the longsword ends his life. In the rear room, Caroline curls against the wall with ropes cutting into her limbs. She stares at Alan's bloody sword and cold expression as though witnessing an impossible vision. Relief overwhelms her and she lunges forward, seeking comfort the moment her restraints loosen. Alan steps aside because rescuing Caroline does not erase every choice that brought her here. Thomas suddenly enters with a thick stick, having abandoned safety after spotting another fleeing villager. That villager has rushed toward a neighboring settlement to report the violence unfolding nearby. Alan already sees approaching markers through his map and has no intention of hiding. He orders Thomas to hang Lancer from a pole in the center of the clearing. The 4 dead kidnappers are piled beneath their leader as an unmistakable warning. Val Ironhide soon approaches with roughly 12 men attempting to move unseen. Alan has tracked every step they took from the moment their group left home. The newcomers freeze when moonlight reveals Lancer hanging above the bodies of his followers. Then Alan emerges carrying his blood-stained sword, nearly making several men retreat immediately. Val recovers and insists that his people shared no real loyalty with Lancer. Alan checks the map and confirms wary neutrality rather than genuine murderous intent. Once the sword returns to its sheath, Val explains the settlement's troubled recent history. Its former leader was Joe, an older man respected by several neighboring communities. Lancer was Joe's adopted son, yet he murdered the old leader and seized control. Val wanted revenge but hesitated because attacking an adopted heir could divide local alliances. By killing Lancer, Alan has removed a problem without creating the enemies he expected. He announces that the settlement now belongs to him and asks whether anyone objects. Nobody does because desert ownership follows strength rather than documents, inheritance, or courts. Alan introduces himself and promises peaceful relations with neighbors who avoid causing trouble. Val agrees, then leads his men home to discuss the dangerous newcomer among themselves. Their conversation reveals that Alan's equipment and pale skin suggest Falcon Kingdom noble birth. They reject the Pioneer Lord theory because previous claimants arrived with hundreds of followers. A lone teenager with 2 servants looks more like a disgraced second son seeking survival. Back inside, Alan questions the villager who ran to Val instead of joining Lancer's defense. The frightened man introduces himself as Megan Sandworm, an unfortunate but apparently common desert name. He explains that Lancer constantly beat residents and seized whatever little wealth they produced. None mourn their former ruler provided the replacement allows them enough food to survive. Alan sends Megan from house to house announcing that everyone now lives under his protection. They must address him as Master Alan rather than using the title reserved for bandit leaders. Next, Alan brings Thomas indoors and reveals the Pioneer Charter bearing the Royal Steel Seal. Thomas's hands shake when he realizes his master secretly possesses lawful authority over frontier territory. Following Alan no longer means surrendering his dream of eventually becoming a household steward. It means becoming the founding steward of an entirely new domain if they survive. Caroline watches from behind them, astonished that the despised second son became a genuine lord. Alan explains his need to hide the charter until his power can withstand foreign bounties. Thomas quickly understands that they must grow as outsiders before revealing allegiance to Falcon Kingdom. Without public noble status, however, ordinary families will have little reason to join voluntarily. Alan answers that strength governs this land, allowing him to absorb communities through protection. The greater question is whether he can expand before stronger groups notice his ambition. Thomas leaves to recover their horse and supplies, leaving Caroline alone with her rescuer. She kneels, apologizes through tears, and begs to return to Alan's service. The kidnapping destroyed her confidence about traveling alone through dangerous southern territory. It also revealed that remaining beside a pioneer lord could offer a future beyond servitude. More importantly, Alan risked his life after she insulted him throughout their journey. He agrees to reconsider her place but declares that disobedience must carry consequences. Caroline promises to accept punishment, expecting the harsh switch traditionally used against castle servants. Alan chooses a less damaging but deeply embarrassing correction that leaves her face burning. He explains that injuring her back would prevent useful work for several following days. His practical reasoning leaves Caroline unable to decide whether she was punished or manipulated. Alan adds that the standard penalty requires 10 repetitions, meaning her debt remains unfinished. He leaves before she can argue, privately satisfied that her pride is finally weakening. The 3 sleep beneath one roof, with Thomas guarding the entrance and Caroline nearby. By morning, Caroline has already prepared water and carefully wrung out Alan's washing cloth. Nobody has personally served him with such attention during his 3 miserable years here. She even reminds him about the remaining punishment, determined to prove her renewed obedience. Alan administers only 1 installment and postpones the others, keeping the proud maid uncertain. Outside, Thomas has gathered 49 residents belonging to 11 exhausted and impoverished households. Their clothing hangs in rags, their cheeks are hollow, and hope has become dangerously scarce. Thomas expects an inspiring speech, but Alan knows promises cannot fill an empty stomach. Whoever feeds these people will earn loyalty more effectively than any noble declaration. He briefly shows them their new master's face before returning everyone to necessary work. Megan explains that the settlement survives through fire dates and scavenged fragments of ancient iron. 5 mature trees produce roughly 100 fruits each day outside the winter season. Merchants purchase each fruit for 1 copper coin, creating the community's most dependable income. Ancient iron scraps come from ruins scattered across this region by a forgotten catastrophe. Alan asks why nobody plants more trees when each mature trunk could support several families. Megan leads him into a protected yard where imported black earth surrounds the existing orchard. Desert sand is contaminated, preventing crops from taking root regardless of careful watering. Imported soil costs 10 copper coins per kilogram because powerful merchants control the supply. Fire date trees also consume enormous water, while the settlement owns only one failing well. Its water level has fallen steadily and may disappear within several years, according to Megan. Without water, the orchard dies. Without fruit, income ends. Without income, everyone eventually leaves. Alan studies the 15-meter stone well and hears another unexpected system notification. 1/10 of an energy point appears despite no monster being killed nearby. A second notification follows while two women harvest ripe fruit from the orchard. Alan asks another worker to pick one date and the system rewards him again. Production inside territory under his control generates energy just as surely as killing monsters. His map now outlines the settlement in pale green and displays Alan's name above it. For 3 years, the system lacked nothing except land officially controlled by its host. Alan immediately sees a self-sustaining path through farming enhancement and rapidly increasing production. First, however, he scans the poisoned sand and learns the terrible cost of restoration. Purifying and fertilizing 1 square meter requires 2 energy points far beyond current reserves. Imported black soil can be enhanced more cheaply, but water remains the urgent crisis. The system calculates that the well will run completely dry within only 1 year. One enhancement costs 10 points and could eventually supply more than 100 households. Daily fruit harvesting should generate enough energy for the first upgrade before nightfall. Alan plans to improve water, grow more crops, and reinvest every reward into expansion. Val Ironhide arrives before noon and offers to guide him through the iron grounds. On their walk, he explains the violent hierarchy governing this corner of the desert. The Red Wolf Gang dominates Red Wolf City and controls most profitable regional trade. Larger bandit bands and settlements rank beneath them while tiny communities occupy the bottom. Red Wolf merchants buy iron scraps for 5 copper coins, despite receiving 3 times more outside. In exchange, their fighters periodically clear dangerous creatures from the important scavenging zones. Smaller settlements threaten one another constantly because no authority punishes conquest or murder. Val therefore wants to renew the alliance once maintained with Joe's community. Alan needs local knowledge equally badly, so both men accept the arrangement without pretending friendship. The scavenging grounds are the remains of an ancient capital once holding millions of residents. 8 satellite fortresses surround a central ruin now called the Black Nest. Thick death mist fills the inner city, where powerful creatures continue gathering in darkness. Alan views that danger as an almost limitless reserve of energy waiting beyond the walls. Val leads him toward Dead Night Ruins, the satellite district assigned to nearby settlements. Workers dig several meters down because anything remaining on the surface vanished centuries ago. Beneath the streets lie corpses buried by dark creatures to expand their protective mist. Sunlight neutralizes the bodies once excavated, leaving rusted pieces of weapons and armor behind. 35 villagers may find only 10 pounds of usable metal during an ordinary day. Alan opens the detailed map and notices pale white dots hidden beneath foundations and streets. Every dot marks buried metal, giving him an advantage no blind scavenger could imagine. He redirects one digging group toward a wall and lets them uncover the evidence themselves. Their tools strike metal after only half a meter, exposing 2 skeletons covered in fragments. Nearly 1 pound of iron emerges from a single location that normally appears completely worthless. Megan celebrates Alan's astonishing luck, while the new lord carefully conceals the true pattern. He marks broad productive zones, rather than directing every shovel toward impossibly perfect targets. One miracle can be luck, but repeated precision would invite questions about his abilities. Alan leaves Thomas supervising the workers and travels toward the increasingly abandoned inner district. A skeleton emerges from a ruined building carrying a thigh bone as a crude club. Alan uses Lancer's heavy axe instead of wasting valuable arrows or damaging his sword. One overhead strike pulverizes the skull and awards another energy point immediately. 2 more skeletons follow, only to collapse beneath 2 controlled swings from his stronger arms. Sunlight reduces these creatures to slow targets without the mist concealing their approach. Within half an hour, Alan destroys 20 skeletons and gains 20 enhancement points. He spends everything on Constitution, raising strength, speed, and resilience together. The system now recognizes him as a Bronze Knight candidate at the 3rd developmental stage. Progress that requires ordinary fighters months of training occurs during one profitable hunting session. This ruin is not merely a scrapyard, it is Alan's private training ground and treasury. Pushing deeper, he suddenly feels danger before any sound or movement reaches him. A red marker waits inside nearby rubble belonging to a level 1 dark hound. Its agility exceeds Alan's, making an unseen ambush potentially fatal without his map. He stores the axe, draws his sword, and pretends to remain unaware of the creature. At 3 meters, the hound explodes from hiding with crimson fangs aimed at his throat. Alan leans backward and holds the blade upright, allowing momentum to impale its stomach. The beast crashes against stone with its entrails dragging behind, yet immediately rises again. Dark creatures ignore injuries that would end any normal animal within seconds. When it lunges again, Alan sidesteps and removes its head with one downward cut. The system awards only 1 point, identical to the reward provided by a fragile skeleton. Alan barely finishes, resenting the unfair payment before multiple howls answer from deeper ruins. Several red markers race toward him, revealing that dark hounds hunt together in packs. He sprints until the markers finally stop pursuing, promising himself a better prepared return. On his retreat, a faint green dot appears among the common white metal indicators. Alan follows it into another group's territory before 8 men surround him with wooden clubs. Their leader threatens death unless the unfamiliar teenager leaves the street immediately. Alan catches the threatening club with one hand, preventing its owner from moving it. A sudden pull drags the man forward, and one kick launches him backward across the ground. A left hook dislocates another attacker's jaw before a shoulder strike drops the third. Alan moves through the opening so nobody can continue surrounding him from every direction. The remaining men hold their clubs raised, but none possesses the courage to step forward. Their leader surrenders the territory, gathers the wounded, and abandons several pounds of iron. Alan accepts because the same men would have beaten him without hesitation several days earlier. Desert justice belongs to the strongest fist, and his fist has become considerably stronger. Beneath the captured street workers, uncover the green object that drew Alan into conflict. It is a complete dagger preserved by trace mithril despite 1,000 years underground. The system values it at 5 silver coins, far exceeding an ordinary settlement's daily income. At sunset, Alan returns with more than 50 pounds of iron, quadrupling expected production. Caroline has organized harvesting, housing, and inventory while preventing anyone from hiding supplies. Alan appoints her to manage production because literacy and stubbornness make her ideal for accounting. Thomas will supervise the laborers at Dead Night Ruins and coordinate future work crews. That evening, Val invites Alan to meet the leaders belonging to their neighboring alliance. Warren Hall is a broad, muscular man who immediately offers unnecessary physical training advice. Peter Kowong appears thin and carefully groomed, maintaining noble airs despite his patched silk. Warren and Peter begin arguing over food vanity and which man frightens women more effectively. Leona Goldfish crosses the fire and surprises Alan with a confident kiss against his cheek. She praises Lancer's execution and promises unusually warm hospitality whenever Alan visits her settlement. The final leader, Evelyn Bloom, offers a quiet greeting before retreating from everyone's attention. They share roasted rabbit mushroom soup, vegetables, bread, and cheap rum beneath the open sky. Conversation turns toward a violent stranger who defeated 8 men and stole their scavenging street. Alan listens silently while they describe broken ribs, swollen faces, and the attacker's frightening strength. Val worries that the unknown conqueror may target Alliance territory during the following day. Unable to tolerate their anxiety, Alan admits that he is the supposedly dangerous thug. Nobody condemns him because taking territory through strength is accepted throughout the Desert of Death. Instead, the leaders become fascinated by how someone his size defeated 8 armed men. Questions about combat training threaten to expose Alan's noble upbringing and hidden legal status. He creates a tragic explanation involving a beautiful noblewoman who once supported and trained him. Alan claims she gave him clothing, equipment, affection, and hope before choosing another man. Leona grows emotional while Val offers brotherly comfort to the apparently heartbroken commoner. Alan says an earl's household threatened his life and forced him to flee into the desert. Their sympathy peaks until he reveals that the opposing man was the woman's own husband. Every listener chokes upon realizing their tragic hero supposedly loved a married countess. The humiliation makes the ridiculous story believable because nobody expects someone to invent it. Alan leaves with an excellent cover identity and an invitation to visit Leona privately. He declines for now because building his territory matters more than temporary entertainment. Alone beside the orchard, Alan spends 10 energy points improving the well's daily output. Production rises from less than 1 cubic meter to almost 3, exceeding current needs. Extra water can support new trees, additional residents, and eventually larger cultivated fields. The next morning, Thomas discovers the change and proclaims that the gods favor their new master. Villagers who feared Alan yesterday now view his arrival as the beginning of salvation. He renames Joe's settlement Babylon, borrowing the name of an ancient wonder from Earth. If anything great rises from this poisoned wasteland, Alan believes it will deserve that title. At the ruins, Val reports that another group called Morrel's crew seized a neighboring street. They also captured more than 20 villagers after defeating the previous settlement's protection. Alan spends the day hunting skeletons until his strength becomes 5 times that of a normal man. Near sunset, he enters Morrel's territory and finds 4 men assaulting a helpless village woman. Her bleeding husband lies nearby begging, while the attackers laugh at his weakness. Alan interrupts with mocking applause, forcing all 4 criminals to turn their attention toward him. He identifies Morrel and announces that the newly captured street now belongs to Babylon. The men rush together, confident that numbers will crush one slender teenager immediately. Alan closes the distance first and kicks Morrel 2 meters through the air. A left hook breaks another man's face before a second strike drops him unconscious. The remaining attackers attempt to flee, but Alan catches and floors both within seconds. He awakens Morrel with repeated slaps until blood, teeth, and apologies spill together. Alan orders the broken crew away and promises death if any member returns. All 21 captured villagers choose Babylon rather than returning to leaders who failed them. Val and Peter witness the enlarged well and finally believe rumors of divine favor. Within 2 days, Alan controls 3 scavenging streets and more than 70 residents. Babylon's iron and fire date production has multiplied almost 9-fold under his hidden advantages. At dawn, the Alliance forms a guarded convoy carrying its first major shipment toward Sandrit town. Alan walks beneath roadside poles bearing murdered families, and his ambition hardens into fury. The convoy enters Sandrit town after guards accept a bribe of 20 fire dates. Beyond the gate, merchants, taverns, and crowded workshops survive beneath Harris Sandrat's violent rule. Roscoe's trading post buys the Alliance's goods, but smaller settlements endure a deliberately slower line. Partner communities receive quicker service and slightly better prices after meeting demanding production quotas. Babylon falls far below the population requirement, yet its shipment shocks the skeptical manager. Alan's workers produced more than 200 kilograms of iron during their first trading period. The manager orders every sack emptied, expecting rocks to be hidden beneath the metal. Pure iron fragments spill across the yard, silencing workers and nearby settlement leaders. Alan then presents the mithril-laced dagger recovered through his system map. After firm bargaining, he sells it for 5 silver coins and collects the settlement's earnings. Inside the counting house, Alan notices Tessa, Roscoe's young daughter, reading alone. Her elegant clothing and bright appearance seem completely misplaced within the brutal desert town. Alan recognizes her book as a bitter memoir written by a repeatedly divorced noblewoman. He politely warns that its cynicism may distort a young reader's expectations about love. Tessa first resents the intrusion, but Alan's confidence and manners quickly capture her attention. He recommends romantic adventures, princess journeys, and stories filled with hope instead. When she questions his unusual knowledge, Alan claims romance helps warriors develop gentler hearts. He turns away at exactly the right moment, allowing curiosity to pull her after him. Tessa asks his name and notices the noble bearing hidden beneath his weathered clothes. Alan describes himself only as the leader of a tiny settlement ruined by tragic circumstances. She imagines a fallen noble struggling honestly in the wasteland and offers assistance. Alan reluctantly mentions Babylon's need for partner status with her father's trading post. He promises to meet the iron quota despite controlling far fewer residents than required. Tessa adds Babylon to the partnership ledger before nervous clerks can stop her. Alan leaves with the signed contract moments before Roscoe returns with armed guards. Roscoe soon learns that an unknown young man approached his treasured daughter. His fury collapses only when Tessa threatens to abandon her planned departure from the desert. The feared merchant reluctantly keeps his distance while privately ordering Alan watched. Unaware of that conflict, Alan visits the town's only supplier of imported black soil. The manager, Courtney, has raised prices and still possesses contaminated soil nobody will purchase. His failed mixture contains 2 parts desert sand for every part of useful black earth. Alan's system reveals that enhancing this cheap mixture costs exactly as much as pure soil. 1 energy point transforms a cubic meter of worthless dirt into productive farmland. Alan buys Courtney's entire rejected supply while negotiating a discount on genuine black soil. He also purchases 4 young fire date trees, exhausting nearly all his remaining money. Mature trees are never sold because each one produces a dependable stream of copper coins. Val explains that wild specimens grow around remote oases guarded by animals and magical beasts. Hunters visiting Leona's workplace may know the locations of such unclaimed groves. Alan visits the entertainment district and finds Leona managing women who depend on her protection. She trades information for an unspecified future favor and identifies 3 promising wild oases. The nearest oasis lies southeast, isolated beyond routes that ordinary travelers can navigate safely. Alan rides there alone because his system map prevents him from becoming lost among endless dunes. He finds wolves, smaller animals, and 5 fire date trees growing around clear water. 2 young saplings can be removed immediately, while larger trunks require workers and carts. Alan returns with 20 villagers, then deliberately draws the resident wolf pack into battle. 7 wolves spread around him, attacking from several directions beneath Val's horrified gaze. Alan's improved agility lets him strike each leaping animal before its jaws reach him. 3 wolves fall beneath 3 punches, their skulls cracking against his strengthened fists. The alpha attacks from behind exactly where Alan intentionally left an opening. He catches its tail, drags it backward, and crushes its skull with repeated blows. No energy arrives because ordinary animals do not qualify as supernatural creatures. The workers recover valuable meat and transplant 3 additional trees without further resistance. Back in Babylon, Caroline anxiously checks Alan for wounds before admiring the expanding orchard. Workers mix cheap sand with imported earth, while Alan secretly enhances each prepared section. One mature tree begins dying from transplant shock until a single point restores its vitality. The system therefore grants Alan something nobody else possesses: perfectly reliable mature transplantation. He continues hunting skeletons and invests the rewards into water production and constitution. During the next 5 days, Babylon's orchard begins generating substantial passive energy every morning. Alan finally returns to the inner ruins and kills 7 dark hounds inside a narrow alley. With the path cleared, he steps into the death mist and absorbs energy at extraordinary speed. Hundreds of points pour into him during only several reckless minutes. Then something deep within the fortress awakens and drives stronger creatures toward his position. Ghouls and corpse serpents surge from the darkness with statistics far beyond his ability. Alan escapes into sunlight carrying more than 200 points and a dangerous lesson. The mist can be harvested, but draining too much at once provokes whatever controls the ruins. His disturbance also pushes dark hounds into nearby scavenging streets occupied by ordinary workers. A scream leads Alan toward Evelyn Bloom, trapped upon a broken wall above 8 beasts. She attempts to warn him away, unaware that his strength has multiplied since their meeting. Alan enters the pack and splits skull after skull with broad swings of his axe. Within a minute, every hound lies motionless beneath the wall. Evelyn loses balance while climbing down, forcing Alan to catch her securely in both arms. Her face burns with embarrassment, but gratitude replaces the fear previously filling her eyes. Val and Warren soon arrive with a rescue party after the unexpected creatures surge. They explain that Evelyn's absent husband forces her settlement to work dangerously close to darkness. Dandy spends most of his time in Red Wolf City while draining everything his wife earns. Alan later upgrades Babylon's well until it can support irrigation and a much larger population. Seeking more trees, he investigates 2 connected oases known collectively as the Gourd Oasis. The smaller area contains wolves and several valuable fire date trees. The larger Death Oasis appears strangely empty despite possessing richer vegetation and abundant water. Alan discovers carnivorous magical vines hidden along the ground beneath ordinary leaves. Their tendrils drag careless hunters underground from distances approaching 50 meters. His map exposes every rooted kill zone, allowing him to avoid the disguised predators. More than 30 fire date trees have grown undisturbed behind this natural defense. Alan marks 22 worth transplanting and returns toward the place where he tied his horse. The horse is gone while unfamiliar footprints lead away across the sand. 8 hostile markers move southeast with the stolen animal, forcing Alan to pursue on foot. He tracks them to Danny's settlement and demands the immediate return of his property. 2 thieves deny everything until Alan breaks their confidence with several brutal slaps. 6 armed men then charge from inside, led by the settlement's desperate ruler. Alan knocks Danny's axe away and sends him crashing into his own followers. Every remaining fighter falls after a single strike, ending the confrontation within seconds. Danny admits his people began stealing because their well and 2 trees were dying. He intended to abandon more than 30 villagers after gathering enough wealth to escape. Alan claims a stolen camel restores the dehydrated trees and summons every resident. He expels Danny's crew while offering the abandoned families reliable water in Babylon. They pack their possessions, imported soil, and rescued trees without questioning the unexpected salvation. Alan returns after dark with 37 settlers, 2 trees, his horse, and a camel. Babylon's neighbors can barely understand how losing 1 horse produced such a profitable result. The next day, Alan carefully harvests another section of Death Mist without repeating his mistake. He leads workers through the Death Oasis using the map to avoid every carnivorous vine. 22 marked trees reach Babylon safely before nightfall, dramatically expanding the orchard. Farming alone now generates dozens of energy points each day without requiring combat. On the following trading visit, Babylon exceeds its partnership quota by an enormous margin. Roscoe's spies confirm that Alan kept his promise, preventing their furious employer from intervening. Alan bribes Courtney with smoked wolf meat and secretly receives black soil at the old price. Courtney becomes a useful contact inside Harris Sandrat's tightly controlled commercial network. Leona later provides 5 distant oasis locations and warns about beast folk raiding nearby caravans. When Alan returns to the ruins, he finds the Iron Alliance facing a larger threat. Powerful settlements are retreating from the inner city because of the surges Alan accidentally caused. One group containing 500 people has ordered every small settlement off the outer streets. Val advises surrender and temporary labor under the invaders, sacrificing nearly 1/3 of earnings. Alan refuses because their leader is not a titled knight and therefore remains beatable. He captures 2 injured dark hounds and imprisons them inside linen sacks overnight. The following morning, Nabrisselman arrives with 30 fighters and hundreds of workers. His lieutenant whips Megan and demands Babylon abandon the territory immediately. Alan catches the lieutenant's strongest punch in one hand and holds him completely helpless. Repeated blows crush the man's confidence while his 5 companions flee toward their leader. Ney personally advances with all 30 fighters and a finely crafted military battle axe. Alan throws the 2 sacks into their formation before the mob can surround him. Furious dark hounds burst free, scattering trained men through instinctive terror and confusion. Ney resists the panic and attacks alone, swinging his weapon with impressive physical force. Alan sidesteps, crushes the leader's wrist, and claims the dropped battle axe. A relentless beating forces Na to surrender without Alan needing to kill him. Alan takes the invaders' wagon as additional payment and claims every northern scavenging street. Babylon suddenly controls more territory than its own population can possibly excavate. Alan plans to hire smaller settlements for fair shares while forming a permanent guard force. During the victory meal, Evelyn fails to appear despite promising to attend. Her husband Dandy has returned from Red Wolf City and is beating her brutally. He accuses Evelyn of infidelity because Alan gave her wolf meat and accepted a handmade shirt. The Alliance finds her bruised and bleeding while Dandy demands impossible explanations. He claims membership in the Scorpion Brotherhood and threatens every settlement defending his wife. When Dandy notices Alan wearing Evelyn's gift, greed overwhelms his performance of jealousy. He demands 10 silver coins as payment for the supposed offense against his honor. Alan recognizes that Dandy values control and money far more than his wife's dignity. Evelyn steps between them when her husband raises another hand against her. Alan catches the wrist, moves her aside, and strikes Dandy across the face. Threats about gang retaliation dissolve beneath an extended storm of measured but crushing slaps. Dandy eventually offers Evelyn herself in exchange for being allowed to escape alive. Alan gives the final decision to Evelyn, who cannot order her husband's death. She banishes him permanently, and Alan promises a fatal response should he ever return. Although Dandy's gang claims seem doubtful, Alan warns Evelyn not to trust his surrender. Back at the ruins, Alan finds strangers secretly digging upon his newly acquired streets. Their leader immediately recognizes Babylon's young master and offers to return every recovered fragment. Alan instead allows them to work for a 20% share, far below prevailing rates. He asks them to recruit other struggling communities for his remaining unused territory. News spreads rapidly, transforming feared conquest into a growing network of willing dependents. Alan then leaves on his camel to inspect the distant oases identified by Leona. 4 locations provide 35 trees, although many remain too heavy to transport alone. At the final enormous oasis, Alan discovers 2 groups confronting each other near the forest. One contains families and injured hunters, while the other consists entirely of armed men. The hunters found 2 newborn magical beast cubs and accidentally revealed their discovery. Members of the Venom Fang Brotherhood seized the cubs and returned to silence every witness. Their commander Dudley orders the families murdered except for women useful to his gang. As a spiked club descends toward the wounded hunter, Morris Allen releases an arrow. The shaft tears through the attacker's neck, and a second bandit falls before anyone reacts. Dudley raises a shield and leads his men toward the forest where Allen is hidden. 3 more arrows strike during their charge, reducing the group before close combat begins. Allen discards the bow and meets 10 attackers with Na's captured battle axe. His superior strength and agility end every exchange before the criminals can recover. Blood darkens the vegetation as the gang members fall one after another. Dudley offers silver gold and promises of peace once his followers lie dead. Allen refuses because men who murder witnesses cannot safely be permitted to retreat. Dudley's machete and shield break beneath one decisive swing of the military axe. The wounded commander stumbles from the forest only to collapse before his remaining men. Those survivors flee, but Allen uses a fallen bow to prevent anyone carrying warning away. Morris and his families kneel in gratitude after realizing the entire execution squad is dead. Allen asks directly about the magical cubs that inspired such ruthless violence. Morris identifies them as newborn ground spike lizards taken from another oasis. Adults grow 8 meters long beneath armor plates and can raise stone spikes from earth. Even titled knights hesitate to confront one mature specimen without overwhelming preparation. The Venom Fang leader Ezra plans to raise both cubs as future war beasts. His camp holds roughly 50 men and lies 30 miles from the rescued families. Allen decides that injustice clearly requires immediate correction and valuable beasts require responsible ownership. Morris guides him through darkness while the women, children, and elderly remain hidden. The bandit camp contains only hostile markers confirming that no innocent residents live there. 5 hunters approach the entrance loudly, drawing guards and Ezra toward the front. Allen circles behind and blends into a group sent to ambush Morris from the rear. One bandit glances at him, mistakes the rough clothing for membership, and continues forward. Allen casually alerts the hunters, exposing the ambush before it reaches firing distance. Their arrows drop several attackers, while Ezra turns furiously toward the unfamiliar helper. Allen strikes the lighter across the face, shocking every nearby criminal into silence. Ezra finally realizes that the stranger inside his formation belongs to neither side. His strength is considerable, but Allen's latest constitution enhancements remain decisively greater. The captured battle axe descends before Ezra completes another threat. Their leader dies instantly, and his followers rush Allen in a disorganized wave. The axe flashes beneath moonlight while bodies fall faster than the gang can coordinate. Remaining criminals attempt to hide or escape, but the system map exposes every location. Within 10 minutes, the Venom Fang camp contains no surviving hostile marker. Morris leads Allen into Ezra's room where 2 armored cubs rest inside a straw-lined crate. They resemble broad-headed pangolins with curved claws and twin rows of developing spikes. Their eyes remain closed, allowing them to imprint upon the first creature they eventually see. Morris covers their eyes with black cloth so nobody accidentally claims that bond. His honesty, bravery, and immediate cooperation convince Allen that these hunters are valuable recruits. Morris accepts Babylon's protection because his old home can no longer remain hidden safely. Every hunter's marker becomes bright green as they swear to follow their new master. Allen then discovers Ezra's buried savings through the map behind an interior wall. The cache contains 5 gold coins and several hundred silver coins. Weapons, preserved food, a wagon, and a bronze warning bell add further value. Weeks of scavenging produced less wealth than one decisive campaign against organized murderers. Allen burns the empty bandit camp and returns toward the large oasis by morning. Wolves and a sand leopard roam there while magical beasts have appeared during earlier seasons. No supernatural predator emerges today, allowing Allen to examine the forest safely. 21 additional fire date trees grow within, including 4 fully mature specimens. Morris struggles to understand why someone so strong values ordinary fruit trees this much. Alan only explains that every fruit represents dependable money and water will not limit Babylon. 2 days later, the newcomers approach a grove where dozens of transplanted trees surround the settlement. Caroline runs forward and embraces Alan after 5 days without any message from him. Thomas and the neighboring leaders repeatedly feared that the Death Sand Sea had claimed him. Alan introduces the hunters, assigns their needs to Caroline and Thomas, and secures the cubs. At Dead Night Ruins, Val, Warren, Peter, and Evelyn gather with visible relief. Nobody approached Babylon's streets during Alan's absence because his reputation now deters mid-sized settlements. 5 smaller communities already work his unused ground under the promised 20% arrangement. Their loyalty markers shine green because Alan's terms multiply income without stealing their independence. Babylon's own people now recover roughly 250 kilograms of iron each day. Contracted communities add another profitable share while carrying every cost of their own labor. More settlements want access, but every available street has already been assigned. Alan understands that fair treatment can absorb neighbors more efficiently than violent conquest. His orchard workforce, wealth, territory, and influence have all expanded within a matter of weeks. That night he carries 100 accumulated energy points toward Babylon's strengthened well. Alan invests them into the water source that will sustain the next stage of Babylon's rise.